If you and I were to have another business, what would it be? Me and
Coffee
you,
shop?
we're opening a business. Coffee shop. Could you see us being baristas? I could see you being
Uh,
barista. Can I just
I was gonna say,
nail
not
a
you.
catchphrase?
You
What would be my
would be the
job? I
behind the
take out the
scenes.
trash. I'm behind the scenes. Great.
No,
I
like you're
go
the
from like the
mastermind.
guy. Yeah, I'm like the guy that everybody wants to talk to now. No one talks to. Emily has put me in the back. This
I meant like,
relationship really turned around quick as soon as I became a coffee owner. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Proclivity Podcast. I am your host, Joel Cochran, and I'm here with my co host, Emily Rodella, and we're going to grab the shovels and we're going to dig deep today because what we're talking about today is mom guilt. So I'm off the hook, one, because I don't have a child, two, because I'm a male. And so I'm off the hook. And so I'm going to be leading this through and we're going to get real deep with Emily. And she's been really calm, cool, and collected before this podcast, not nervous at all. And so I'm really looking forward to how this all lays out. How you feeling?
yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well, and looking forward to it being over as well.
Well, I applaud your courage already, knowing that this may be a difficult topic to talk about. And if you're a mother out there and you can relate to mom guilt, then you're going to want to be tuned in with this episode. What we're going to talk about is what is mom guilt? What are the influences that happen within our sphere that can cause this mom guilt? What are the types? There's actually types of mom guilt, and this is going to resonate with you, maybe with Emily, maybe not. What are the health effects? So can you actually become unhealthy by constantly feeling this mom guilt? And then, of course, how to overcome it. So we're going to dive into this. Emily's going to be nice and open and transparent today. And I'm going to ask a lot of questions because I'm very curious. Again, I'm not a mother. I'm not a female. And I don't have children. I got a lot of nieces and nephews that are really cool, but I get to hand those back. So let's dive into it. I was looking and thinking, what is the definition of mom guilt? And I'm gonna give you what I took from the interwebs, and I want you to let me know if this is on track or if you'd add anything to it. So, what I found as a dialects coach, what I created in terms of what mom guilt is the feeling of guilt regarding your children and the personal and societal expectations around parenting.
That's a good start.
Okay. So I want your definition of what mom guilt is.
Yeah, it's the constant thought process in my head of, am I doing this right? Should I do this? Should I do that? And thinking of, hey, I want to prevent trauma in my child. I want him to be able to learn the right lessons, have discipline, but also not, quote unquote, ruin him for the future. So I'm constantly thinking about my decisions and how they influence him.
And what are some examples of that in terms of should I do this or should I do that?
Man, classic example, when he's in a meltdown, what do I do? How do I react? How do I move forward? Right? Do I let him have it? Do I say, hey, we're done here? Right? There's so many options that go through my head, right? Especially during times of, hey, we need to be somewhere. So how do I get him in the car when he's not wanting to? Or in the grocery store? Or even at home when my patience has really worn thin and it's been a constant meltdown all day, for at least that's what it's felt like. And I'm like, what do I do? And if you guys know me at all, I'm a major questioner and tend to have trouble making decisions with these things. And so it's a constant, I call it a tennis match in my head. And so the classic meltdown, Do I enroll him in this? Do I say this to him? How do I comfort him here? When I do lose my patience, how do I, at this age, how do I talk to him? Will he understand me?
Mm-hmm.
So many things.
So many things. And let me ask you this: how old is Dansby?
He just turned 3.
The greatest. Uh, Let me ask you: can you tell me the memory that you had in what is it, August, when you were 3 years old?
I don't think so.
You don't think so, or can you? August.
No,
Oh,
no.
okay. Okay. Cool. Can you remember the way that you felt when you were younger?
Yes, at times.
Uh-huh. Okay. And so this should, we talk about this in the proclivity method. Quit shoulding on yourself.
Hmm.
Should is a soft word that's going to create ambiguity or uncertainty. So when we're thinking about should, and again, this is more, I'm more curious on this, particularly because you know the language.
Hmm.
Is there a point where you just go, I will, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm sticking to my guns, regardless?
Yes, because at some point I have to make a decision, right? Unless my husband takes over, unless he all of a sudden becomes happy and we're like, okay, here we go. Yet I still question that decision afterwards.
What is that? What are you questioning?
Did I do the right thing? Right? I'm carrying my kid crying, kicking and screaming in my arms, pinning him down in his car seat, for example. And I'm like, hey, is this the right thing? But we got to
Mm.
go. So
Mm-hmm.
here I am. This is what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel after that?
Guilty, shameful, questioning still. Just don't feel good about it. Like pit of my stomach doesn't feel good.
And do you shake that, or does it stay on top of your mind, or it only gets better when he gets better?
Typically, it gets better when he gets better. So it sits with me for a bit, and then once he moves on, I can take a big deep breath and be like, okay, we're good now.
Isn't that interesting?
There are times where I think back, like at the end of my day, I'm like, shoot, did I do the right thing? And I'll think back to it. I'm like, is that
Mm-hmm.
going to affect him? Is he going to think differently or be hurt emotionally or whatever it may be? And so, or even on the flip side, right? Should I have had more discipline or more boundaries with him? It goes both ways for sure. And so I'll think about that as I lay my head on my pillow at night.
Oh, geez. Aren't you others? Amongst so many other things that you're thinking
Yes.
about when you let your head down. You do good. You do good.
Thank you.
Emily has a very good wind down sleep routine, and it's great. That's how she keeps her mind at bay.
Mm-hmm.
What is the worst case scenario you're thinking of? Right? You're thinking, okay, he's kicking and screaming. I'm pushing him in the car. Should I have done that? But we really need to go. Should I have coddled him? Should I have talked to him? Should I
Mm-hmm.
have addressed his emotions? Should I have breathed with him? Should I co-regulate with him?
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst case scenario that we're thinking of here?
Worst case scenario is that it hit the feeling he has is so bad that it affects how he moves forward, right? Like the word trauma, the definition of trauma. That's what I think of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, will
Mm-hmm.
this affect how he moves forward and who he becomes?
Mm. And he's going to become uh, a bad person if I pushed him in his car seat, and this trauma is going to make him end up becoming a serial killer.
No, I don't think about that at all, actually. I
Oh, okay.
think about if he's going to be happy in life in general. Like, will this affect how he moves through life, being happy or confident, empowered, all those things? I
Ah,
don't think he's going to be
interesting.
a bad person. Yeah.
Why don't you think he's going to be a bad person?
I have more confidence in that of our general parenting techniques and me having an open line of communication to where I don't know, I have more trust and confidence in that.
Then why don't you have trust and confidence that he'll be happy and full of love?
It's a good question.
That's why I'm asking it.
If you've ever worked with Joel, this is how it goes. in a good way, in the best of
This is
ways.
how it goes. This is how it goes.
Um, probably because I remember feeling bad sometimes when I was young, and I look at myself now and I go, why am I the way I am? Why do I question myself? Why at times do I have maybe lack of confidence? Why do I tend to be a people pleaser? Like all those things where I'm working on in myself. And I go, where did that come from? Was that from the time that I didn't feel so great with my parents or in X situation or
Mm,
something they told me repetitively?
mm, mhm. So there's things about yourself that you don't feel safe with or have fully accepted of, and you don't want Dansby to feel that same doubt or insecurity or so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And so, is there the possibility that that could be projected onto Dansby?
Yes.
Okay.
hmm
Okay. The reason that I ask this of you, Emily, and for you guys to really cue in is that we will get to the point of being able to address the importance of healing you. Because just like I asked Emily, I said, can you remember August 24th when you were 3 years old? The answer is no. No one does. But can you go back to a feeling when you were a little kid and then you can remember the moment? It's the feeling first, whether it was fear or whether it was joy or whether it was nervousness. We can go back and we can feel the moment. We are emotional beings. And if we aren't willing to address our emotions, maybe our parents didn't address theirs, and now we are dealing with the emotions of what we grew up with, they will be passed down. This is how generational trauma does happen. Not because you put them in the seat when it was time to go, but how did you feel and interact throughout your day about yourself and your beliefs and who you are and the comfort and safety you have with yourself? They will feel that as well.
hmm
This is not to downplay having good techniques,
hmm
but I find it very interesting. You're like, no, of course he's not going to be a serial killer. He's going to be a great guy. But I just want him to be happy.
hmm
Or do I want to be happy? And if I'm pouring constantly into my child, how can I be happy? How can I give to me if I'm constantly pouring into my child? Right? I caught you the other day with the screensaver, huh?
Oh
That
yeah,
was,
that was a goodie.
you want to tell them about that?
Yeah, Joel goes, "Hey, what's on your screensaver? What's on your phone?" And I show him. It's a picture of Dansby, of course, like any mother, with their child. And he's like, "Why isn't Casey on there?" Well, yeah, you didn't ask that. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. And made me think, yeah, why do I not have a full picture of Casey, me, Dansby, or just Casey, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was a great reflection point.
And what'd you do?
I changed it to a picture of all three of us.
How'd that feel?
Great.
How come?
It's the little things.
Because it's the
Did you
little
say how
things.
come?
Yeah.
Because it's including all my priorities.
Mm.
And I mean, just speaking off what we just talked about, like it's less like at first I was like, no, like my son is like he's the most important thing to me. I'm like, wait a second, no. So is my husband. And so it's a good reminder of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because before Dansby, who was the most important person in your life?
Yeah. Casey. So yeah.
Yes.
And when you become a parent, as you know, your child can easily become the priority always.
Hmm.
And it's hard to get out of that mindset even. So just for
Hmm.
me, it's a reminder.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've broken into understanding a little bit of what mom guilt is. I also want to address the influences that you may feel from the external world when it comes to mom guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you feel influences with mom guilt?
With immediate family and friends first.
Hmm.
Because I'm one of 4 children, and so my 3 siblings, we all had kids within the same couple of years, so they're all relatively the same age, and so there's a lot of influence there,
Hmm.
of like, hey, I see them doing this, their child reacts this way, they parent this way, and I go immediately to myself of like, should I be doing that? Am I doing it right?
Hmm.
So that's the first line of influence for sure, and my parents.
Yes.
And anyone out there being, oh, you should do this, right? And so social media is another big one. That's where I can get down into a deep rabbit hole of, oh, when your child has a meltdown, these are things you can say to them.
Oh
And it's
yeah.
great. They truly are great ideas. But for
Hmm.
me, it's a trigger of questioning myself. And I don't like that because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I've learned that my intuition is best. Of, like you said, like look into myself. And when I do that, that's where I feel most confident rather
Hmm.
than questioning because other people are saying you should do this or these are better ways or XYZ.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I find that so interesting, right? And I get it. This is social media, parenting experts, right? Social comparison, seeing somebody else out and about and they did this, and you watched all of a sudden the child calm down. You're like, oh my gosh, like that's a miracle worker. That was 1 out of 20 times. Okay. And it's interesting to me because we in the proclivity method teach people how to go internal to external. We create our light within and we influence the world outside of us, not the opposite. And yet, if we are constantly looking external, we're going to be taking in all these inputs without actually looking inside and going, well, what is it that I would want?
Hmm.
How would I want to be coddled? How would I want to be loved? And then the big question is, am I doing that for myself?
Hmm.
Because if I'm not doing that for myself, how do I know exactly how to do that with my child? Now, that's a broad, sweeping answer because, of course, you have natural instincts to love and so on and so forth. But again, what I'm working on here to help create some cognitive shifts is what do you deserve that maybe you didn't receive when you were a child growing up with 4 different siblings?
Hmm.
Was there tenderness and caring for Emily because she was the youngest? Did she miss those opportunities and had to be independent on her own? I got it. I can do it. No problem.
Hmm. It's a great question. Again, I haven't, I've thought of it in the way of, yeah, what was I missing as a child? And why do I feel that way? But I love what you said about thinking about how would I want to be loved and talked to in that situation, and first doing that for myself.
Hmm.
That just like that just shifted for me in terms of, oh, I haven't actually looked at that,
Hmm.
and that would give me more. If I were to do that, that would give me more confidence in with what I'm doing with Dansby.
And let me ask you this too. This just popped in my mind. Would you allow someone else to do that for you?
What do you mean by that?
Would you allow somebody to comfort, to coddle, to nurture you?
Oh, I would think so. Yes. I'm trying to think of a specific example.
Let me ask you this. This is something that I brought up to you the other day about help. And maybe somebody listening right now can relate to this. That I noticed and I brought up to you, hey, it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
receive help, right? And your
Mm-hmm.
tendency is to go, no, I got it. No, I got it. No, I got it. When I'm saying that, no, I'm not going to receive that help, am I willing to
Mm-hmm.
receive that nurturing to me? Do I deserve that nurturing? Do I deserve that time that someone else wants to place into me?
Mm. Yeah, there's times where I do. I'm like, I need help. Like I'm at the point where I need it, or else I'm not going to survive, or this thing's not going to get done. So becoming a mother has actually helped with that. Yet it's also made it more challenging too, because there's a lot more to do. So yeah, that's a great question, because there are times where I don't feel, I don't know if it's the words deserving, but the old people pleaser in me is like, I want to be able to do this so they don't have to do anything extra.
Hmm. If anybody else relates, put your hand up. It's all right if you're walking around and you're listening to the podcast and you're throwing your hand up. Nobody's going to judge you. Or maybe they will. It doesn't matter, internal to external. The reason I'm asking these questions, you guys, is because I want you to see that this is a real thing of being able to ask these hard questions. And Emily's already said it twice. Wow, that's a really good question. Because we tend to, as parents, go, 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 go. We're not allowing the space for ourselves to ask those questions, to allow for that help. And you heard what Emily said. Yeah, there's just times where I have to ask for help. Whoa, we're getting to the point that it's life or death before I ask for help. Why not ask for help earlier on to create the space to be able to have the opportunity to be able to love and heal self?
Mm.
Oh, you heard her say that. You hear that? You guys, when we hear it, that's a cognitive shift of like, whoa, it's interesting. Was that interesting?
It is interesting. I have been working on this. It's a slow drip for me. So I have been with certain things, and it's a matter of getting the reps in, because it's been such a habit for so long that it's just like, so, it's just a direct response. Like it's hard for me to pause in that moment and be like, what should I ask for help? It's just I just go to, nope, I got it. And so for me, it's a matter of slowing down and thinking that through. Yeah, I'm working on it and getting better at it. And it helps talking about it like this, to be like, well, if I were to create more of that space before I got to the like burnout or the super impatient moment, or the high anxiety or whatever it may be, then yeah, it could help prevent that.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm curious of your answer. Do you want to constantly be there for Dansby because you didn't have that when you were younger? Or maybe it was that defense mechanism of like, nope, I don't need help.
Probably the first one. Yeah.
How come?
How come? Well, so I was the youngest. My parents got divorced, and so there's just a lot going on like above me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would see a lot of high emotions around me, and to me, I didn't want to add to that. And I saw how stressful it looked, and I didn't want that. So I tend to stay quiet.
Did you guys get that? The, I could see how stressful it looked. What is that reframe on that sentence? Did you really see it as a child,
I
or did
felt
you
it.
feel it?
Yeah, I felt it.
You felt the stress of your parents being stressed,
Mm-hmm. And
which
siblings, and
then
yeah,
had you do what?
yeah, not talk about it, not want to feel it, or try and suppress it.
I didn't like that feeling of stress. I don't like the way that my mom's looking at my dad. I don't like how they're so stressed. And we think as parents, children don't see that. Children don't feel that. So I want to address, first off, you're doing great. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I'm feeling good. Not super excited, but at the same time intrigued.
Okay. That's where we
Yeah.
want to be. I want to dive into the types of mom guilt there can be. I'm gonna give you a couple examples because I've heard this and worked with moms for. Some moms feel guilty taking a shower. Some moms
Mhm.
feel guilty going to work.
Mhm.
Some moms feel guilty about breastfeeding versus bottle feeding.
Mhm.
Are there any certain types of guilt that you have felt? Could have been some of those. Screen time,
Mhm.
uh, daycare that you feel or have felt.
Can oh yeah, can I say all the above?
You may.
Yeah, I mean, because my son's a mama's boy, classic. Like especially when he's younger, all he ever wanted was me and him to be held by me. And so anytime I dropped him off anywhere or gave him to a different caretaker, whether it be my husband, family, whoever, he like cried every time. It was sad. We were both sad. And so it was hard to do things because of that. And so whether it be the shower, going to like leave the house to go to work and with my husband, or leave him at daycare, like the first 2 weeks of daycare was the hardest. Even though there's that side, I'm like, well, I know this is good for him and this is good for me, but it's still really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's mom guilt often around everything because he was so like clung to me. And it was a difficult transition, just simply leaving him because of that.
Why do you think he was so clung to you?
I think about that a lot. I'm not totally confident in why, but um, I think sometimes, I think it could be for how I was early postpartum. Um, I think I use him in the same way as like a comfort blanket in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also sometimes think it's like part of my personality, part of Casey's personality. But it's hard. I've thought about that a lot, and I actually don't feel like I know why.
I think you named a couple things right there. For sure.
Mhm.
For sure. Yeah, it was different stories you've shared with me about talking about how sad Dansby was. And I reflected back to you in terms of being going, no, you're talking about how sad you are, right? Your feelings of sadness
Mhm.
with him. So
Mhm.
how do we create, because your child is still external to internal. Your husband is still
Mhm.
external to internal.
Mhm.
So when we have an influence even from our child who we think is like, okay, that's my child and that's my safety spot and I'm meant to, and I'm, all the different language that comes along with it.
Right.
Yet if we can't create safety with ourselves away from our child, how is our child going to create safety without you?
That's again a great question and a great. These are the things why I love talking to you about it because it makes me feel better because it takes that pressure off of like, oh, you're right. Uh, I should, yes. I don't want to use I should, but you're right. That's all I want to say. You're
You
right.
can, you can, you can show Dansby safety with yourself away from him. That when you
Mhm.
leave, you take a moment to be able to walk and breathe and let you know you're safe, to let
Mhm.
you know, your inner child know, I'm okay. You're okay, Emily. I love you and I
Mhm.
got you. I know you're crying just like Dansby is right now, but I got you.
Mhm.
Those moments regulate your nervous system so that when you pick him up again, you're regulated instead of dysregulated. Because now you come to work and dysregulated. Then you got to jump on a podcast. Now you're talking about traumas, which now I'm starting to get even more upregulated. What the hell's going on? Now I got to go pick him up. Now I really just want to hold him because he's going to help me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You were talking about how he was rubbing your back.
Yeah.
He plays with your hair.
You're right, Joel. Yeah, I tend to immediately think like, oh, I want to pick him up to make him feel better. My husband even says this all the time too. And I'm like, no, it's for him. Yeah, it's for both of us. It's for me.
There you go. As it is for him as well. Mm-hmm. Right? As it is for him as well. How we doing?
We're doing good. A lot of aha moments, which is good. But it's almost like when we learn about projections in our program, it's sometimes they're a hard pill to swallow. It's like, oh shoot, why didn't I think of this before? Or this is hard to admit or face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. This is to all moms out there. It's okay to ask for help before you get to the breaking point. It's okay. And if you struggle to ask for help before the breaking point, these are the questions we need to ask. These are the things where you hire a coach or a counselor to be able to unwind why you may not be deserving, or you think you may not be deserving of help. Or, I got it. I can get it. I can do it all by myself. Well, why can't you do it with someone else? What of that part of having someone else coming and taking the load off of you makes you feel unsafe, unworthy, not powerful, not in control? Whatever it may be, I'm not saying that's the thing, but why not? Mm-hmm. Why not?
Are you asking me?
I'm just looking at you. I'm looking at you.
Okay, good. Yes, 100%. Because even as we're talking about this right now, like and we've talked about this a couple times before, so now I know and I can reflect on that when I get to those moments. But before, I literally didn't think it was me. Like I would never even thought that was the thing. I'm like, why is my son so clingy? How can I make him feel better? It was always directed towards him. And it didn't even occur to me that if I were to help myself first, it would help diffuse the entire, not just make him feel better, but like, it's not just like, it always comes back to me. It's that internal and external, and remembering, hey, what's in my control here? And man, that's been my mantra lately, internal to external.
Keep that going, because that's a goodie. That's a goodie. And what she's talking about, you guys, what a good example is, why is he so clingy? That is a projection. A reflection is what, Emily? In that same sentence, how would we reflect that?
Why am I so clingy?
What is it that I need out of my son that I'm not being able to give to myself? Woof. Because if we constantly give to our sons to try to actually replace what we're missing, that is external. The only change that will ever happen in your life, you guys, for yourself, is internal, with you. If not, we're going to constantly seek for the external. And then what happens when Dansby leaves and goes to college? We're back to feeling unsafe and insecure and not enough. And if that's the feeling we've walked through 18 years with a child, what are they going to feel when they don't have their girlfriend, their boyfriend, the job, the grades, the sport? I don't have it. I feel insecure. I feel unsupported. I told you we were going to grab the shovel.
Yeah. This is good, though. It's good. It's empowering.
Cool. Let's tie in a little bit of the health part, right? Because we're maybe a lot of you are shaking your head right now and going like, whoa. Or maybe if some of you guys are actually pressing away and be like, nope, that's dumb. I don't like it. That would also be a question I'd have for you. If we're resisting, remember statements press, questions pull. When we start saying something stupid or that's dumb, we're afraid. We're putting our dukes up. So wherever you may be at, right? It's okay. It's okay. We're here to be able to hear from you and support you regardless. We're not saying one thing is right nor wrong. We're just here. Because as Emily famously says,
It depends.
there you go. So, Emily, let's talk about the health effects that mom guilt actually might have on the body itself. What are some of the effects that maybe that you've seen or you've had yourself of being in this upregulated stress state known as mom guilt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you think of upregulated, I immediately think, oh, cortisol is higher for most people. And one of the first and main symptoms for myself and for a lot of other mothers I talk to is gut issues. So indigestion, um, stomach aches, bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation. So there's two different types of people when it comes to constipation or diarrhea, right? When you're stressed, some people hold it in because we're tense. We're like, nope, like we're not relaxing to let things out. Or there's a few people on the flip side of like when you get stressed, you have diarrhea. And so I see that a lot as well in my clients and myself. And so that digestion is a big one because it influences all of our health. Because if our digestion is off, we're not going to be absorbing all the nutrients. We're not going to feel good. We're not going to be processing and balancing hormones as well. Our blood sugar may be off. All the things are influenced by our gut, right? And our immune system lives in our gut. So gut issues is a big one. And then that turns into a lot of other symptoms for people like skin issues, right? We talked about that in our last episode. And I asked myself about that. And then now looking at this conversation today, I'm like, another reminder. So skin issues, it could be autoimmune issues, thyroid, hormone, all the things. Back pain, we've talked about chronic back pain before. If you have some anger usually associated with that, or you're holding on to things, it can turn into back or hip pain. So we see it all.
And people come to us and go, since we don't know, right? We don't have the awareness to be able to make the change. People will come to us and go, I just need to count my macros. I need to get back on this, diet. But they're not making time for themselves because they're not asking for help because they're wanting to connect to their child to make themselves feel better, which is then limiting their time. And so they can't even have the time to be able to do the workout or do the nutrition. This is why at the base of the proclivity pyramid, you guys, is language. Because our identities are going to create our realities, not the other way around. I can give you a perfect macro, whatever, perfect workout. That's external. But if internal, you don't have the ability to say no to the party, to your children, to your husband, or whatever else to put yourself first, then that macro program, that diet program, that fitness program is going to go completely out the door. And so being able to recognize that some of the stuff that you may be going through right now is actually because of what you're saying day to day, what your beliefs are, what you were taught. And being able to break that, not break it, understand it, can help you to shift. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Again, it can be very challenging at first. Like Joel said, if you feel a little defensive when thinking about it, it's because we've never thought about it. And you're like, no, there's no way. I've thought through every option. It can't be that, right? And so, yeah, it's tough at first, but also, again, once you get through it, again, for me, I feel really empowered of like, oh, I have control. I'm empowered. I'm equipped. I can move forward. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. All things aren't going to always be easy now moving forward. But now I have the tools, like you said, to understand.
If y'all are still with us, awesome. Because we're going to keep going. Maybe this is like the third time you picked up on this podcast because we're cruising. And that's okay because we're not going to slow down because this is an important topic to be able to talk about. And I want you, and this is why I told Emily, like, hey, I don't want you to look at the show notes. I don't want you to know what's going on. I just want you to be you. And Emily, you've done an incredible job of being vulnerable and open in this. I know it's nerve wracking to expose yourself and your relationships with your husband and your child, and so on and so forth. So I applaud you for being present with this.
Thank you.
Welcome. So now let's move into how to actually overcome this. I mean, it's the title of the podcast, How to Overcome Mom Guilt. This isn't something that we're going to snap your fingers and mom guilt's going to be away. All right. Mom guilt or dad guilt, guilt or shame in general, goes back to a story, a time where I felt a certain way. And when I felt that way, I remembered the moment. You're not going to remember a moment unless there's a emotion connected to it. It just doesn't happen. You pass by people all the time. You don't remember the person. But if all of a sudden that person fell down and had a heart attack right in front of you and you felt scared, you would remember that moment. That's how memories work. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you a few things to be able to help this mom guilt. We're not saying it's going to solve it, but we are going to give you a direction here. So the very first thing that I want all moms to know, if you're listening, and dads if you're listening as well. I know we said mom guilt, dad guilt's a thing as well. And we were talking about this before the podcast started, Emily, is being able to accept that you are not perfect and neither will your child be.
Mm. Yes.
Let me repeat that. You are not perfect and neither will your child be. They will have trauma. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you did. You want to know the antidote to that? Show your children how to heal from yours. Show your children how to heal from your trauma. Be open and vulnerable with your children to show them that you can heal. That gives them permission to do what, Emily?
For themselves.
That's right. But if you hide it because you feel like you need to take care of your children, they will sniff that out like a bloodhound. And then they won't talk about their emotions. They will keep it in. They won't feel that those emotions are safe. They will ignore trauma and they will repeat loops.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree?
Agree. I would say like a classic example of how to do that. And it's hard because when your child's really young, it's hard to talk to them about things for them to understand it, right? But one, you could lead by example in your actions when they're that young. But two, when they do get older, or even like now when Dansby's 3, I can start to say, "Oh man, remember earlier when I did that? Yeah, I got frustrated. I would, you can whether it be apologize or explain like, hey, this is what I was feeling in the moment. Thanks for being patient with me, whatever it may be, but inviting them into that, right? So when you reflect, you're like, dang, I wish I didn't act that way. Inviting them into that and sharing that with them is helpful.
For sure. And you don't have to talk about it. You can absolutely, whether your child is verbal or not right now, you can show them that. They will feel that. if you get frustrated and then you have a coping technique to be able to start breathing, and you do that in front of that child or in front of that baby, we think that words are what is going, because we're so heady in our society, instead of being able to connect through our bodies or through our movement, through our energy. That's what those kids are going to feel. And age 0 through 5 is when they're developing the most. This is where it can be very hard, because a lot of us have kids when financially we're still trying to grow a career, right? We're still young ourselves. We haven't gone through our past traumas or dealt with things. And now all of a sudden, here's this mirror of who I am that now all of a sudden popped out, and it can be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, being able to show, to breathe, to ask for help, to do the hard things that you're working on as a human,
Mm-hmm.
will show them without ever having to say, like, let me teach you the lesson. Those parts are
Mm-hmm.
very important too, particularly when they start becoming more verbal. But
Mm-hmm.
being able to show you asking for help when you're vulnerable, Dansby will see that without
Yeah.
you have to say, like, see how mom asked for help? You don't have to. He'll see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I tend to feel the need to explain everything.
Is that because you're a little heady?
Perhaps.
It depends. So what I want to do now, Emily, before the podcast started, because this is a really important part, is now that we understand, right? You're not perfect. Kid's not going to be perfect. They're going to acquire trauma, whether by your hands or somebody else's hands. It's how do we show how to heal from that?
Mm-hmm.
I asked you to write down a traumatic story for you, or something that felt very tense where you had some mom guilt. And I'm going to ask you to read it out verbatim for us. Do you feel comfortable doing that?
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say super comfortable, but yes, I'll read it out.
Okay. Okay. Well, when you're ready, take your time. Go ahead, read it out.
Okay. My son tends to be a little sensitive. He's a little sensitive guy. He always has been a mama's boy, as I was telling you earlier, and gets nervous when in new situations and with new people. Like he cries when I leave him with anyone but myself or his grandma's. And so when it was time for him to start a new swim class all on his own without me, with a new teacher, I immediately started thinking about how this was going to play out. The new class time was during my workday, which meant his grandma was going to be taking him. On one side, I thought this would be good to not have me there as a distraction and make it harder for him to see me. But on the other hand, the much more difficult side, I thought I should be there to help him in the nerve-wracking time. And I felt a lot of guilt and anxiety as I went on my way to work that morning and he went off to grandma's. So I felt the heavy pressure on my chest, shorter breathing, sweaty palms, kind of like right now, envisioning what he was going through right in that moment to moment, like literally minute to minute. I was like, oh, I wonder what he's feeling now, what he's doing right now. How's he feeling? Does he know what he's getting into? I envisioned him clinging to his grandma as he had done with me before. And I also envisioned that the teacher was having to pull him away, like decline each hand and foot. And also envisioning him crying, sitting alone on the side of the pool, wondering where his mom was and scared and uncomfortable. Basically thinking his safety blanket was gone. I made the mistake of telling Joel I was feeling a bit anxious before we started our podcast. And when I say mistake, it was a good thing. Because he leaned in, looked me right in the eye and said, "Why is that?" And I knew I was caught. And I felt the wave of pressure build in my eyes and my jaw, and I knew I had to let it out. I cried and I explained how anxious I was with Dansby being at his first solo swim class and how I felt guilty too for not being there. So he asked, "What are you feeling?" And I said, worried and anxious. And as I started to fight the tears from coming, I said, I'm not sure why I get so empathetic and anxious. Other moms I know are so nonchalant with these kinds of things. And he said, worried and anxious. Why? As he so does, asking why. I had to pause and think for a moment, because this is usually where I don't extend the thought. I'm like, I'm worried and anxious. And then I was reminded of myself to surrender to the tears. And I let it out. I didn't hold back the tears, because that's something I've tended to do in the past. And I said, because I'm not there to be with him in a scary moment. And I don't like him feeling scared or sad or unsafe. And then that's when I realized I was hurting inside, and I felt those things. And paired with him saying, do you think you felt that way when you were younger at times? And that's when it clicked for me. I'm like, shoot, that's where I had that cognitive shift, as I have had in this podcast too, of going, is I projecting on my child? And so that was the thought that I was left with.
How are you feeling?
I feel good, because I've gone through the story a couple of times. It's still hard though, because I still have that vision of him being sad.
And what was the reality?
He was fine.
Did we get videos of him splashing and playing?
Yes.
External to internal, even with our children.
Mhm.
Because maybe there was moments for you, and maybe still now, where you feel a little unsafe and unsure, and you feel like you have to carry that burden alone. And you don't want your child carry that burden alone, because you know what it's like to feel all alone and needing to keep your mouth quiet because of the stress that you felt as a child around your parents or around your siblings.
Accurate.
Appreciate you
Joel with
sharing.
the truth bombs. Yeah, of course.
Appreciate you sharing. What we did right there, you guys, and what I would have Emily do again, is I'd have her read it again, but I'd have her read it at 70%. So I'd have her slow it down, like you were reading to your child a bedtime story. This is where journaling comes in so well. Take it from subjective in our head, because what Emily was repeating is that he's unsafe, he feels unsafe, he's scared. Was that pretty much the repeating line that day?
Yeah. Yep.
That is taking it out of context of what the entire story was. And that's because there was a big feeling for Emily of a time that she was relating to that. We don't know what the story is. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. And so there was this big emotional feel to that story that was happening with Dansby. And what we want to do is we want to take it out from being subjective and out of context to objective, down on paper, where we get the whole story, where we actually see, oh, wait a second, Dansby has been at this swimming pool time and time again, knows his teacher, knows his grandma, safe with grandma. There's plenty of people around. There actually is a lot of safety measures. But there was something coming up for Emily. And by being able to write that down, now we can start looking at it objectively. It's on paper. And by reading it out, now we'll express it. We allow the body, just like Emily's tears, to come. The words now get to come out just like the tears get to come out. When we read it again at 70%, we slow it down and we calm ourselves down by just slowing down. Same words, nothing's changed. But there's a difference between talking really, really fast and being up in our chest and being really, really scared. slowing it down, just like when you talk to your kids. It's okay. The boogeyman's not going to get you. Mama's here. Dad's here. You don't come in going like, holy crap, where's the boogeyman? Oh my gosh, you're right. This is really scary. We can do that for ourselves by writing it out and reading it 70%. And then the kicker is reading it with the breath. Every comma or period that Emily had in that story, I would tell her to take a deep breath. Big inhale, long exhale. And by working through that, those 4 simple steps, I know you guys might be listening. If you've never done it before, you're like, there's no way that's not going to work. I have done it hundreds of times and it's worked every time. So you can go off your own experience or you can go off a life coach who has done it with hundreds and hundreds of people with all kinds of trauma, mom, dad, and everything in between. Which leads me to my next point in how to overcome mom guilt. Invest in yourself. Hire a coach, hire a counselor. If you think this is magically going to change, you'll rub up against a story or a moment and you're going to lose your mind. Just like Lil Dansby being at the pool. There's going to be another moment for Emily and she's going to lose her mind. But she's more equipped now and understands it, and she journals, and she's okay with crying, and she's learning these techniques. Does help that her business partner is a life coach.
For sure.
Yet, get yourself a coach and counselor.
Agreed.
The last thing, and then I want to see if you have one, Emily. The last thing that I have is to be able to create your space daily for you to invest in you. I've said this before, I'll say it again. The light doesn't need the darkness needs the light. You are the light. You are the beacon. To be able to get the ships in safely, the lighthouse must be bright. If not, the ships don't come in safely. We have to invest into ourselves and create that space. And this is what we're talking about. Not just, I need to make the time. We need to create the time to allow integration to happen, to be able to comfort self. Not just go and get a massage. That's still external and internal. If I get a massage, I feel better. No. I want you to comfort you as if your own child was freaking the heck out. But we're not, so we have this screaming child inside us that we're not tending to, and we continue to tend outside. So remember, this is a quote that I found the other day. I was reading a book that we're reading actually together. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. That includes your kids. That includes your kids. Emily, anything else you want to add to this as a mother from your own experiences?
Yeah, I'll give my example of what I do right now when I find myself in a moment where he's having the meltdown and I'm questioning myself. Or I'm like, at the birthday party, do I give him this food or not? What do I say to the parents? The questioning. And I pause, I take a deep breath, and I remind myself first that I'm safe. It's all going to be okay. And number 2, I go to that mantra of internal to external. What feels right to me? If no one was here, if I'm not thinking about other people's expectations or social media or what other moms are doing, what would I do? What do I need right now? What does my son need? And in taking the pressure off that I need to do a certain way. And so that's where I've started, is creating safety within myself first in those moments and reminding myself that whatever I do is right in that moment.
Look at that self-soothing techniques. I love it. I love it. All right, you guys. This is a longer podcast than we usually do. And we really appreciate you sticking with us.
Mhm.
If any of this resonated with you, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to Emily. You can reach out to myself, Emily at proclivity.co, Joel at proclivity.co. You can go to our Instagram, proclivity.co, or you can go to our website. We're here to be able to help you. If you just want to talk, book a call with us. We'll chat with you. If it works out and it looks like it fits, you can hang out with us for 12 weeks through the proclivity method. It's a ton of fun. Talk about emotions and people cry and come out the other side saying, changed my life. But if you're not into that kind of thing, that's cool too.
It's fine.
That's fine. That's fine. Anything else, Em?
No, if you like what we have to say, please share with your friends. It really helps us spread the word and help more people. We appreciate it.
We do appreciate you guys so much. Okay, you guys. As always, thank you for tuning in. Episode 120. We'll see you next week for episode 121. And until then,
Best day ever.
that's right. Em, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Pew, pew. I did the pew pew thing. Pew, pew. You think that's how I'm gonna get a girl? I'm like, hey,
Yeah,
pew,
keep
pew.
keep doing that.
Give it a shot. You just don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
Huh. Maybe we'll do an episode about how Joel is going to find his wife.
Mm. Yeah, and then that could be a healing one for you.
Yes. Yeah. If you guys want, yeah.
Okay.
I've done my very scary one. Chase Tolson. I think it's episode 1 something. The Primal Man Pathway. If you want to listen to me be voice quivering, feel free to check it. Did you ever listen to that podcast?
I did not.
Whoa. Okay. I would suggest
Check
it
it out.
as business partners.
Okay.
Anywho, I got a question for you.
Okay.
If you could have one food and it wouldn't upset your stomach, it wouldn't create any inflammation, it would actually help you to actually be like, oh, this is medicine. What would it be?
Ooh. Oof. A chocolate chip cookie.
How big?
Well, it doesn't matter, right? Because if I just can keep eating them, they're good for me.
I would do at
No
least a
matter
plate
what.
size. It would be a plate size.
Like in one
Chocolate chip cookie.
sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I would get a cup that was massive, that would take 2 gallons of milk to pour into, and I would stick the whole cookie in. Right? If milk wasn't an issue for me either, I'd stick the whole cookie in, and then
Yeah. Oof, man.
this is where we actually connected. It was in our cookiness.
Yeah, we love cookies.
I love cookies. That's what I would ask when I ran Double Edge. Is I would say, people are like, oh, it's your birthday. What do you want? Cookies, gluten free. And I would get like 500 cookies. It was great. I'd have to throw them away because my heart would like start palpitating. Like it was dangerous.
Sure. Stomach would be turning. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funky. Okay. All right. That's it. You guys, if you want to get a free box of Element, give us a review and put what food you would have if there was 0 consequences, actually healthy for you. What would it be? All right, guys. That's it. See you next time.
See ya.